Hey everyone, what's happening? I'm Adam, this is Go To Outdoors, and I would love to welcome you back to another one. Today, gonna do a little bit of talking, just kind of explain something and get a little something off my chest. It's time for some honesty. Yeah, big truth today. I came to a realization about myself. I'm a terrible deer hunter. I mean, I've said it in my other videos before that I've got practically zero experience being a big game hunter in general. All the hunting since I was ever a little kid, every time my dad brought me out, I went out with my grandfather and everything like that. I only ever did small game hunting, squirrels primarily. I really like squirrel hunting. It's something I grew up with. It's something I still enjoy, and you've seen videos of it even this year when I've had some pretty good luck. But I would really like to get into big game hunting. Now I have a little bit more time on my hands, and I just feel it's time to branch out. It's something else that I've wanted to learn for a long time, and I think the opportunities have started to present themselves where I could actually take the time to learn how to effectively scout, effectively read the land, and see what a lot of the creatures are after and how they spend their time. And I have a bit of experience observing wildlife, especially deer, when I am out in the woods as often as I am. I've had them walk right up on top of me. But every time I've gone out actually trying to hunt them, I pretty much come up bupkis every single time. And it's kind of hard for me to admit this, but I've actually killed just as many deer with a vehicle as I have when I was actually hunting them. I've only ever harvested two does in my entire life, just because I never targeted them very often, but I had two opportunities to go out, and, both times it was great. I loved the experience, but I've never gotten a buck, and I've never had a reason to go trophy hunting or anything like that because I've always been more of a meat hunter. That's why I prefer the small game, and it's accessible, it's quick to process and store, and it's good, it's tasty, it's healthy, and it's good for you. But it's something I want to branch out into, like I was saying. So I've come to the conclusion that I need to learn how to do this a bit better. And what I'm doing now is I've been doing a bunch of research. I've been using a lot of tools that are available on the Virginia Department of Wildlife Resources websites, as well as Onyx Hunt and things like that to do a bit of e-scouting, electronic scouting, and trying to find the kind of places where I would likely be able to have a good chance of harvesting, you know, a doe or a buck or even several animals this year. So the reason I really kind of came to this decision is the fact that I went to the grocery store the other day and I was kind of appalled by what I saw. There wasn't too much on the shelves, which that's not exactly unique to my area. That's happening all across the country these days. And the stuff that is on the shelves is getting priced higher. Now, there are certain things you can still get a hold of relatively inexpensively, and of course, that's going to be your chicken, your poultry, your basic poultry, and your pork. A lot of not boned out pork cuts and things like that could still be fairly inexpensive. They're still a lot more expensive than they were a couple months ago, or even a year ago or more. But I want to be able to have the ability to shorten my own supply chain, if you will. And there are places that I have access to that do have a fairly large number of animals. In Northern Virginia, there is a very, very, very large population of deer. And I mean, the evidence of that is just overwhelming. Every time I drive down any of the local highways, there's times a year when almost every single mile of highway has a fresh carcass, a fresh roadkill, pieces of cars and bodywork lying all over the place. It's a problem. I mean, it's common enough that I have personally known people who have unfortunately passed due to an accident with a deer. When their car struck a deer. It's unfortunate, and I think a lot of that blown up population, at least in my area, has to do with attitudes, attitudes towards preservation versus conservation. Wildlife management is a tool that requires the adequate harvest of animals to maintain a healthy population. Healthy not only for the animals themselves, but also healthy for the people, because human animal interactions do account for a large number of vehicle accidents every single year. There are some times when people get harmed by the animals themselves. Uh, I happen to live in Loudoun County, Virginia, which, you know, there's not a lot of hunting available. Sure, there's a lot of private property, but again, it comes down to the attitude of the local area. For whatever reason, there's a lot of people that just tend to poo poo hunting in general. Um, you know, Not to step on too many toes, but I think it has to do the whole, ooh, it's Bambi. It's where food comes from. People have hunted since the dawn of time, and being able to provide for yourself, provide for your family, and honestly get some of the healthiest, protein that you can get. I think if more people were educated in wildlife management practices and the ability to positively affect wildlife game resources in your area just through active management, through harvest, through, even if it's some places, trapping and moving. Just, populations in my area are far too high in general for this area to support. My own backyard, every single day, there's probably, 25 to 30 deer that walk through. In an area as small as the neighborhood I live in, that's a lot of animals. And of course, there have been times when they are so populous, so many deer in this small area, where they have begun to inbreed to a point where they're, piebalds are, popping up here and there, and genetic defects are popping up here and there. And I've also noticed that, there's one or two bucks that have been in my area, just in the neighborhood, that created a whole line of bucks with their DNA, where they had, antlers on one side that had all kinds of extra tines, like a 4 point on one side and a spike on the other. And it was always the left side that had the extra tines. And I'd say there was probably 7 or 8 deer that were like that, that either moved on out of this area or were killed or hit by cars or something. This is just a microcosm of an area, but I know Northern Virginia in general, I've always seen where I was growing up, growing up in Fairfax County, then moving, to here to Loudoun County, and when I used to live in Frederick County as well. All these counties in Northern Virginia just have so many deer, and people don't take advantage of it. Again, because if it's not the prevailing attitude of the area, it's because there's just no hunting opportunities available. And there's a tipping point between everything that creates the kind of frustration that I've experienced in trying to find places to go hunt, in terms of finding people to help teach me to hunt, because I really want to learn. Like I said, it's I think the reason that I never got into the deer hunting is because I never knew people around me that had a passion for it, that were experienced in deer hunting, and that, or were willing to take time out of their day to teach somebody like me the skills necessary to become an effective deer hunter, to be an effective big game hunter in my area. Now, of course, all up and down the East Coast is completely different. You hunt out west, it's another story altogether. So going forward, I am going to be bringing you along on my journey to become a better deer hunter, and I'm going to start from the basics. I'm going to start from, choosing what kind of firearm or whatever you want to bring out into the woods, learning how to use it effectively, teaching you how to sight it in and get it ready. And that, at least, I know how to do, because I've, always been involved in hunting and everything else. And, for a time, I was actually a salesman of firearms at a now defunct retail chain. But, so the gun nerd in me has always had the stuff available. I just never went hunting with said stuff. So, it's kind of no excuse for me not knowing how to be a deer hunter at this point. But I'm going to change that, like I said. So, starting from square one, going to be teaching you my journey to go through all of this, and I'm going to hit all the speed bumps along the way. You know, it's going to be going over the resources that I have in my area, the resources that I have in my state. You know, there are a couple places I can actually get access to that are across state lines because right where I am, there's 4 states within an hour's worth of driving, and each one of those states has a wildly different set of rules when it comes to deer seasons. So it's what I got to learn, and that's what I'm going to bring you along for. So nothing really much else to say on that at this point. Let's just see where this goes. My next video, I am going to be going over a couple decisions that I made recently regarding the choice of firearm I'm going to be using for my hunting this year, as well as the choice of my ammunition. That ammunition choice is actually going to be spurring a bit more of a discussion that I'm going to have going forward, so it's something I'm researching at this point, and that's all I'm going to say about that for right now. But that's all I've got for you today, so like I always say, thanks again for watching. Make sure you find a reason to smile today, and I'll catch you in the next one.